Hello everyone, this is Varsha and welcome to Programming Knowledge. So in this tutorial we will understand about the shadow DOM objects. So let's get started. So before understanding about the shadow DOM, let us understand what is DOM. DOM means Document Object Model. So when the web page is loaded, the browser creates a tree of objects on the web page, and this tree is called as DOM. Like in the previous tutorial, I explained DOM is an API in which when the web page is loaded, the browser creates a tree of objects on the web page. Like here you can see we have the root element HTML, then we have the head, we have title. Under the HTML we have the body tag. Inside the body tag we have the H1, the A tag, and all these tags are inside the body tag, right? So this is a DOM structure, that is the document object model structure. For example this page, and if I click on inspect, and here you can see this entire thing is your DOM. That is, we're having the HTML head, body, and the div tags, the input tags. All this is your DOM. We have the head, we have HTML, we have head and the body tag and the closing HTML tag. So this is a DOM structure. Okay. Now DOM provides power to JavaScript to do some following things, like they can change the elements of the page, they can change the attributes of the element of the page, we can add or remove elements or attributes in a page, we can create new HTML events, and we can react to those events. Now how do we do that? Let me explain you with the help of an example. Now for example, suppose let me write HTML. If I write HTML over here, and I'll write body, I'll give the body tag, then I'll use the P tag, I'll write a text over here, this is not shown. This is my P tag. Now let me run this, and here the output is on the console, that is, this is not shown, this is the output. Now what if I write a JavaScript code? I will write my JavaScript code in my script tag. So here I will write document dot get element by ID. So I'll give an ID over here in P tag. I will write an ID over here. I'll write it as X1. So the ID that I'm accessing over here is X1. Okay, now I'll use a DOM property, that is the inner HTML is equal to welcome to programming knowledge. Okay, now let's run this command, and here you can see the output is welcome to programming knowledge. Now what we can see over here is that welcome to programming knowledge is overriding this is not shown. Okay, what happens is when we write document.getElement by ID, it finds this ID X1 and it changes this element, that is, this is not shown is changed to welcome to programming knowledge. Okay, so this is what is happening over here. So DOM provides the power to JavaScript to change the element, to change the attributes of the element. We can add or remove the elements of the web page, and we can create new HTML events as well. What is the need of shadow DOM? Like in the previous slide, I explained that DOM provides power to the JavaScript to change the elements, right? Now there are websites that require some web components developed by others that contains the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript code. What are these web components? For example, like this is the online ID that I'm having, and here you can see these advertisements, right? Here you can see these ads. These ads are controlled by some other site. Okay, and here you can see this is Facebook, so this is controlled by the Facebook site. Similarly over here, if you can see, we have different types of ads over here. Like here you can see this Dell ad. Also, if you're looking some other pages, like here also you can see this is the Microsoft Exchange, this is also controlled by some other site. All these ads are controlled by some other site. So what you are saying is that these are the web components that is developed by others that contains the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript code. Now for example, over here, this thing that you can see, this web component is having an HTML, CSS, or JavaScript code. Now when I integrate with my code, this is the code that I am having. Obviously, as I said, DOM is giving the ability to JavaScript to change the elements, right? So what if all the code that is written over here in this JavaScript is changing the code that is written over here in the HTML? It's harmful, right? So that's the reason why we are using shadow DOM. Over here, the objective is that people want to use this web component of others, but they don't want to impact their sites. So how do we integrate a web component from other developer so that they cannot access my component, so that their component and my components don't interfere? How do we do that? The solution is the shadow DOM and iframes. Now iframe is something different. For example, suppose if I give something some iframe, some functionality is presented over here. There is some functionality over here. This is functionality 1, and there's another iframe that I have. There is some functionality 2. So whatever changes that I perform in functionality 1 will not affect the changes in the functionality 2. That is the feature of iframe. Okay, this is one feature of iframe. We will study about iframe in detail, but for now, to understand, whatever functionality, changes I do in functionality 1 will not affect the changes in the functionality 2. This is what iframe is. Okay, coming to the next is shadow DOM. Now what is shadow DOM? Since we have understood the need of shadow DOM, we have understood what is DOM and how does DOM provide the power to the JavaScript to change elements. So we have understood what is the need, but what is DOM? This is the definition. Shadow DOM is a web standard that developers use to encapsulate their HTML code and style components so that no other style component can override their code. For example, suppose we are working in a group. We are working in a group of 4 to 5 people, and there's a project, and everyone is working on different functionality. So let us take up, suppose there's a user 1. So this user is developing some functionality, and I'll just write a code for it. Suppose div class is equal to, I'll write it v, and I'll write h1 tag over here, and I'll write hello world. Okay, and I'll write some styling over here. I'll give some styling. So since it's a class, so dot v, and I'll write some color, and I'll give color as red. Let's run this. So here the output is hello world in red color. Okay, this is the user 1's code. Now the user 1 is not knowing what the user 2 is coding. They are working in group but differently, right? Someone is working for some other functionality, someone is working for some other functionality. So this is the first functionality which the user 1 created. So I'll just comment this for now, and let's see the next example. So the next user develops some other functionality. Let's see some other functionality, and I'll just write a code of it. I'll write div, I'll write class, and now the user 2 does not know what the user 1 has coded. So there might be a chance that they have named the class similar. So I'll name the class as v itself. Then I'll write the in h2 tag, I'll write hello user 2. Okay, and I'll write some code for CSS. Because it's a class, so I'll access by a dot v, and I'll write color. I'll give it as green. Okay, so let's see. Here the output is for the user 2. Now since we are working in a project and we need to present it, so we will integrate the code. Okay, user 1 and user 2 are integrating their codes. So what will happen? For example, the user 1 and user 2 has integrated their code. Now what will happen? As we know, for user 1 our output was hello world in red color, and for user 2 our output was hello user 2 in green color. So now after integrating, let's see what the output is. It's hello world in green color, it's hello user 2 in green color, which means this CSS style is overriding this CSS style, right? That's what is the definition of Shadow DOM. Shadow DOM is a web standard that developers use to encapsulate their HTML code and CSS components. Style components means CSS components. They are encapsulating their HTML code and CSS components so that no other CSS component can override their code. Now in this case, if user 1 has given class V, so there might be many classes of class V, right, of name V. There would be very many classes of name V. All those V classes will get overridden by green color, right? The entire text will be of green color. So here the CSS style is overriding, right? So this is the definition of Shadow DOM. So when we try to find Shadow DOM elements using the Selenium locators, it will throw no such element exception. Okay, now how do we identify it is a Shadow DOM object? For example, I have this website. This website is having the Shadow DOM element. So if I want to inspect this element, I'll click on inspect. And here you can see this shadow root open. This shadow root open is used to denote the Shadow DOM object. So another thing that we can see over here is if I see in selectors hub, here it is in blue color, that is in Shadow DOM, it is written over here. So this means that this element is a Shadow DOM element. Here it is written the element inside the Shadow DOM, and for such elements XPath won't support. Yes, for Shadow DOM elements XPath will not support. We need to inspect these elements through CSS selectors. Okay, now let me give an example. Like suppose this is also a website which is having the Shadow DOM elements. So if I want to inspect this element, I'll click on inspect, and since here you can see we have shadow root open, shadow root open, shadow root open. So this is a Shadow DOM object. Okay, let me open my selectors hub, and here you can see we have this element is inside Shadow DOM object, and in such elements XPath is not supported. Now what if we give an XPath? If I want to inspect this element, let's see what error do we find. So I have already created a Selenium tutorials 9 Java class over here, in which we have the first command is open the Chrome browser, in which we have system.set property, the key and the value is given over here. Next we have written WebDriver is equal to new Chrome driver to launch the Chrome driver. Next we are navigating to the URL. This is the URL that we are navigating to, and this is the element that we want to inspect. So we will write a XPath for this element. Okay, let's see. Then I'm maximizing the window, and this is the XPath that I have written over here. Like I've written driver.findElement by.xpath, 2 slashes, and the tag that I'm using is the input tag. Here you can see we have input tag. Also the attribute that I'm using is the ID attribute, and the value of it is input. So the ID attribute and the value is input, and I'm sending some command as testing. So let's see if we can run this code and what error do we find. So our Chrome browser is launched, it's navigated and it's maximized. Can you see some text over here? No, right? So here there's an error. Let's see what that error is. We have no such element exception, that is no such element, unable to locate this element. We are unable to locate this element. This is shown over here. This is the error that we are getting, and there is no text sent over here. Do you see any text? No, right? There is no text sent over here. So it says that it is unable to locate element. So whenever we try to locate the Shadow DOM elements, this is the error that we find, that is the no such element exception is given over here, and Shadow DOMs does not support the XPath. Okay, we have to use a CSS selector to access Shadow DOM objects. Also, to access Shadow DOM elements, we have to use the JavaScript executor. We will understand that by implementing it. Next, there are some terminologies in Shadow DOM. While inspecting the element, while identifying it, these terminologies will be used. One is a shadow host, that is the regular DOM node that the Shadow DOM is attached to. This is the shadow host, right? It is the regular DOM node that the Shadow DOM is attached. The Shadow DOM is attached to shadow host. Next, we have the shadow tree. The DOM tree inside the Shadow DOM. This is the shadow tree that we are having. Here you can see this highlighted part. This is the shadow trees that we are having. It is a DOM tree inside the shadow DOM. Inside the shadow DOM, these are the DOM trees. Next, we have the shadow boundary. Here you can see this is the shadow boundary. This is the place where the shadow DOM ends and the regular DOM begins. Okay, so this is the place where the shadow DOM ends and the regular DOM begins. Next, we have the shadow root. That is the root node of the shadow tree. Now, this is the most important element that we are going to inspect. Like suppose if you want to inspect this element, we will inspect the shadow root, we will inspect the shadow host. So we will understand that. But for now, these are some of the terminologies that is used in the shadow DOM structure. So now how to identify it, like I have showed you before, like we have the shadow root written over here. That means it is a shadow DOM object. Also, if we go on selectors hub, so over there it has a feature, it shows in blue color, that is in shadow DOM. It also gives information about that relative XPath is not supported. That is, this element is in shadow DOM, and for such elements XPath is not supported. So this is one way to identify the shadow DOM object. Now next you will understand its implementation. Let us do a practical implementation on it. So this is the website that we need to automate, and this is the element that I am inspecting. So I want to enter some value over here, any value I want to enter. So this is the element. Now before writing the code for it, we need to understand the elements that are under shadow DOM and which are not under shadow DOM. Okay. So this is the DOM structure which we have. This is the entire DOM structure. We need to understand it first. This is the element that we want to inspect, okay, which is not under shadow root. The elements that are under shadow root is style, div, slot name. These are the elements that is present under shadow root. This input is under book input decorator top, okay. This book input decorator top is not under the shadow root. If you are thinking this is under shadow root because the shadow root is written over here, no. If we click on this, we can see the style and the slot tags are under the shadow root. But the book input decor top is not under the shadow root, okay. So this book input decor top is under the app toolbar. So this book input decor top is under the app toolbar, and this app toolbar is not under the shadow root. Can you see anything? Can you see the shadow root? The shadow root is present over here, in which we have the style and the div tags. Okay. So this app toolbar is not present under the shadow root. This book input decor is present into app toolbar. Okay. Next, this app toolbar is present under the app header. This is the app header, okay, which is inside the shadow root. Here you can see this shadow root. Now if I click on this, we can see app header, right? So app header is under the shadow root. And then we have the app book, which is the host. Here we can see the root element, and this is the host element, right? So first we will go on app book. We will inspect the app book. Then we will enter the shadow root element. After entering the shadow root, we will move to app header. After app header, we will go on app toolbar. After app toolbar, we will go on book input decor, and after book input decor, we will inspect this element. Okay, this is the element that we want to inspect, right? So this will be the entire process. The first thing is that we have to identify the host. This is our host. This is the root element, right? So first we will inspect the app book, then we will enter the DOM element. Inside the DOM element, first we will enter the app header. After app header, we will inspect the app toolbar, and after app toolbar, we will inspect the book input decor, and then we will inspect the inputs tag. Okay, so this is the element that we want to inspect, right? This input is the element that we want to inspect. This input is under book input, okay. This book input is under the app toolbar, and this app toolbar is under the app header, okay. This app header is under the shadow root. This is our root, and this is our host, and this is our host. So the first thing that we will inspect is this, the host. This is the second thing we will do. We will enter the DOM. Inside DOM, this is the third thing that we will inspect, that is the app header. After app header, we will go on app toolbar. This is the fourth thing that we will inspect. After app toolbar, we will inspect the book input decor. This is the fifth thing. And the sixth one is the input slot. Over here we will send the commands because it's the search box. We want to send some command to it. So after all these steps, we can inspect this. So this is the entire thing that we're going to implement now. First, we will inspect the host. Then we will enter the root, the shadow root. After entering the shadow root, over here we will use a JavaScript executor. After this, we will access the app header. After app header, we will access the app toolbar. We will inspect the app toolbar. After that, we will inspect the book input decor, and then we can move on to input. Okay, so this is the entire process that we're going to follow. So let's do that. So first, let's inspect the host. We will write driver dot find element by dot tag name. Over here we are going to write, this is our host, right? So we are inspecting our host. The tag name is book app. So I will write book app over here. Because this is a web element, I'll write web element host is equal to driver dot find element by dot tag name. Okay, next we will enter the DOM. Okay, for that we need to write JavaScript executor j is equal to driver. Because this driver is of WebDriver, driver is equal to new Chrome driver. So I'm going to typecast it. So I'll write JavaScript executor driver. Okay. Next, I'm going to do j dot execute script which accepts two arguments. One is the string and one is the object argument. So here in string I will write return arguments, the 0th one, and where do I want to enter is I want to enter to shadow root, right? So I'll write the shadow root, the 0th shadow root. Shadow root is present in the host element, right? So I'll write comma host. Okay. Now I'll give this a web element. I'll write shadow DOM is equal to, says we need to cast it to web element. Now just because this is of JavaScript executor type, we need to cast it to web element because I want to inspect web elements over here. Okay. Now whatever we're going to do, we are going to do inside the shadow DOM. Okay. This is the shadow DOM. We inspected the host element. And we inspected the shadow root element. So we are inside shadow root now. Now inside the shadow root, what I want to inspect is app header now. Okay. So what I'm going to do is, this is the app header. I will write shadow DOM dot find element by dot tag name, and inside the tag name I will write app header. And I will give it as a web element app header. Okay. So far we have inspected our host. We are into our DOM element. Also we have inspected the app header. Now we are left with the app toolbar, the book input decorator, and then the input slot. So after navigating to app header, we need to enter the app toolbar. Okay. So what I'm going to do is, I will write app header dot find element by dot now this app toolbar, there are two app toolbars here. You can see this one and this one, right? So here the class name is different, so we will access by class. So we will use the CSS selector over here. So I'll write by dot CSS selector, and then I'll write input I'll write toolbar. Because it's a class, so I'll write dot and the toolbar bottom. Okay, so this is my tag name and this is my class. I'll give a web element. I'll name it as app tool. Okay. So far we have navigated to host, we have inspected our host, then we came into our DOM element. After that we navigated to app header, and after which we came to app toolbar. This is the app toolbar that we came. Now inside the app toolbar we want to go to the book input decorator. So we are going to write, this is the book input. So what I'll do is I'll write app tool dot find element by dot tag name, and I'll write the tag name over here. I'll give this a web element. I'll write a web element over here, web element book is equal to apptool.findElement. Okay, so now we will inspect our element, that is the input tag. So what we're going to do is we'll write book dot find element, or let us use a CSS selector. So I will use a CSS selector. I'll write by dot CSS selector. So we can use this is the tag and the ID that we have is input, so I'll use input because it's an ID, so hash input. And what value do I want to send? I want to send some key to it. I will send Selenium WebDriver. Okay, so let's run this. So our Chrome browser is launched. It's navigated. It's maximized, and here you can see that the command is sent, that is the Selenium WebDriver. Okay. So this is what is shadow DOM is. As I said, first we need to find the host element. So our host element was book app. Then we entered the shadow DOM. After entering the shadow DOM, we have to inspect the app header. After app header, we inspected the app toolbar, after which we inspected the book input decorator, and then we inspected the input tag. So here you see, first we need to understand the DOM structure. Before writing a code for the shadow DOM, we need to understand which elements are under shadow DOM and which elements are not under shadow DOM. So this is one way. So this is how we're going to do it. Now there are different sites where you can practice shadow DOM, like you can use the Chrome download page as well. This download page is also having shadow root elements. For example, like if you want to inspect this download, here you can see we have shadow root elements. This is a shadow root, this is shadow root, this is shadow root. Also there are different websites like let me show you one. Like this is the website that is there for shadow DOM practice. Like all the elements that are present over here are of shadow DOM. Here we have shadow root, we have shadow root, we have shadow root. So you can have a you can practice on this website also. So I'll give all these links in the description so you can get a hang of it. And yeah, this is all about the shadow DOM. In the next tutorial, we will understand about the different types of commands that we use in Selenium. So until then, goodbye. Please like, share and subscribe this video. Thank you.